I was trying to follow this recipe a little while earlier because I am not. I'm learning to cook from TikTok. So there we go. So we're up in now I do the best I can, honey. I'm the domestic arts that was never my mother's strength, therefore it was not mine. My mother's a homemaker, not a housekeeper. That's what she said. We are up now. Hey everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. Um, as I welcome a very special young lady to the show. And she is a gift from my sister beloved, Ariel Gold. Um, we have been talking about Gaza now, well, for a little more than 3 years, but it's something that's really been seeped in my consciousness for almost half a century. That having been said, it's really at the center of the international discussion. Israel is a fascinating place. Everyone in the world is connected to it in one way or another. And as we get to know more about Israel and understand more, we understand the challenges. I think we understand the challenges facing its citizens more and more. We're beginning to understand what Gazans, what Palestinians are dealing with. What we're not hearing a lot of, though, is from people who serve in the army. Moreover, those who object, who are conscientious objectors, we don't hear their stories. And we're going to hear that story today. There's a tremendous movie, Objector. You can watch it on Amazon Prime, as I did. And you'll be moved very, very, very profoundly by this young lady's story. She's from a military family, and yet something drove her to become a conscientious objector. We need to hear her story, and I'm going to give her as much space as she needs to share with us her thinking. Was it an evolution? Was it a revolution? Was it a re-evolution? What was it? What made her become an objector? Objecting to what? What did she see? Was there a pivotal moment? Was there just what makes her tick? And how many other objectors are out there? I know that there are others, but many might not feel strong enough to come forward. So we'll see. But we have to salute this young woman's courage and the strength of her conscience and her heightened consciousness. And so we welcome to the show. She's now part of the family. I told her she has to be my niece now that she's on these shores, because as someone who's old enough to be her mom, that's what I have to be. ATALYA, how are you? I'm so glad that you're with us today.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. So tell me, how are you doing, and what brings you to the United States?
These are very, very hard times, I think, for all of us who care about human rights and human life. And I am here to try to speak to people, to change minds, and to show that the community in the United States that they have responsibility towards the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine, and that if I'm here resisting, then they are able to join me in this. And I think it's like my voice, the voice of a refuser is not something that people hear a lot. And I don't think that I have moral authority, but I hope that hearing like a variety of voices and different types of voices could change some minds. And when speaking about the crimes being committed by Israel and our responsibility towards making change.
Do all Israeli citizens have to serve in the IDF?
Yes, it's mandatory service for women as well.
And what is the justification for that? Why?
Hmm?
Why must?
What's the? I think it goes deep into like the militarization of society and the way that the military is viewed. Like when I was a kid, I would hear a lot the phrase "tzava bone am bone tzava," which means people build the military and the military builds the people. It's this notion that it is really the same, that the people are the military and are all responsible and painfully responsible for the state and for like for the militarization in it. It's really everywhere and it's a part of everyone. And like my family is not unique in that it's a military family, because every family is like that.
Okay. So so then if that's not unique, describe what when you say that you're from a military family, what does that mean?
I think it means that both my parents served in the military. It means that my uncles served in the military, some higher ranks than other. It means that all of my cousins are in the military. It means that the two of my sisters were in the military. It's that. It's
Everybody's
everything.
everybody's in the military.
Yeah.
So are you conscripted? Do you join or do you get a letter? How does that work?
So it's a very organized in like sort of entering you into the system. So it starts when you're just a child and you know that this is where you'll go. But once you're in high school, you are being like very actively prepared for it. So when you're 16, you need to go into like trials. So they'll see like which unit you fit. So they check your intelligence, they check your problem solving things, they check your mental health status, they check your blood. I mean, you go through all that. And also for 17-year-olds or like for people in the 11th grade, you go into like a week of like mock training and you learn how to shoot a weapon for the first time. And then I was in a youth movement. So when I finished high school, I was living a year in a commune. And there were 16 of us living together in this commune. And we would do mainly educational work, but we also had seminars preparing us for military conscription. And we would know like which unit are we supposed to go to together. And it was during these seminars that I really made the decision to refuse. Because they would talk so much about morality. I was like in a very like socialist left-wing social youth movement, but it was still very Zionist. So they would talk about like social responsibility and morality and even the occupation, and they would talk against racism, but still push us into becoming soldiers and like being like moral soldiers. But I think part of my journey was understanding that there are no moral soldiers, because you are still holding up the same system of occupation and of oppression. And one of my guides or my counselor would tell me, like, imagine yourself as a soldier. And I imagined myself not being able to look myself in the eye. And also they would talk a lot about social responsibility. And that's sort of what led me not only to not serve in the military, but to choose to be a public refuser, because I wanted to have a very, very clear statement. And also I knew that being a public refuser would mean that I will be sent to military prison, and that in being in military prison, I will get a different platform and might get more people to listen to the message that I have to say. And after I refused, I was 4 months in military prison, but I also got a bigger platform to speak against occupation and our responsibility towards it.
What was military prison like? Well, take us through the process of objecting, because I'm was that I know it doesn't seem as if you woke up one day and said I object. You evolved into it, would you say? Take us through
Yeah.
that process.
So it was a very long process, and I think for me, it also involved being familiar with somebody who didn't go to the military. My brother also didn't enlist, but he did not refuse publicly. He did like gray refusing. He got like a medical exemption. And first of all, knowing a person that didn't go to the military changes everything. And that is also why it is so important for us to speak out, because you never think of it as a choice, but it's enough to know one person who made the choice not to go, and then you can at least start to think about it as a choice and as a possibility. So for me, knowing him changed a lot. And he did the last 2 years of high school abroad, and he came back and started to talk about the occupation, which was a word I didn't know before. And he taught me a lot about like the place where I live, because I grew up in Jerusalem, very much on the border between like Palestinian Jerusalem and like the occupied Israeli Jewish Jerusalem. And so I spent a lot of my childhood around Palestinian people and in Palestinian spaces. And also I think I was just less afraid of, and this culture of fear is very meaningful in what sort of upholds the Israeli state of mind towards Palestinians. But my mother, I think, was very good with like not teaching us to fear and allowing us to sort of just like explore the space we live in, which a lot of people don't. But also growing up there, I saw how the military oppression grew. I saw soldiers racially profiling people and stopping them on the street and searching them. I saw like Damascus Gate, that used to be a big market, turn into a quiet, empty place where there are military guards everywhere. And I was scared of the soldiers, which I also think was sort of like a unique experience as a child. I mean, for a Palestinian child, that would be very normal. They grow up afraid of soldiers, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think for me, it was like I was placed differently. So I think it was all of that together that sort of affected me. And also when I had to make the decision myself, I already knew of other people who refused publicly. And that was also very meaningful, because a year before me, Tayel Kaminer refused. And she was public with her refuser. She wrote a blog while in prison. And she was a part of a group and an organization and a network, I would say. And so when I didn't know what to do, I sent a Facebook message to this group called Mesarvot, which is the like female act of refusing, because every word in Hebrew is gendered. And I became a part of this group. And also, so when I refused, I was very prepared, because I already knew friends who did the same thing and already had comrades who protested with me against the occupation and who accompanied me to the military base when I had to refuse. And sort of that's what happens. Like you have a date where you need to go to this specific military base. And we had a protest against occupation, against militarization, calling for others to refuse. And then I entered and I told him I refused to enlist, and they took me into arrest. And I was met with a military judge. And what happens is that the military judge can only give you up to a month of prison time. But that is not an exemption. So once you finish this month in military prison, you still have to enlist. So I needed, and that's what every refuser does, you need to come back and refuse again. And again, you get up to a month in military prison. And again, when you finish that month, you need to come back and refuse again. So I actually refused 4 times, and that's why I was 4 months in military prison.
How did you tell your parents, your family, that this is what you were going to do? And what was their reaction?
Yeah, it was difficult. It was a difficult conversation. And I think it was like, I wasn't living at home when I made that decision. I was in the commune. And so I had like a lot of time to sort of prepare myself. And the conversation was complicated. I mean, my parents wanted me to enlist. They thought it would be good to me. They thought I'll become a social outcast, that I'll have to, just like leave everyone I know, that I won't have friends anymore. Um, but ultimately, I think for my mother, she was pretty clear about just do what you want to do.
Hmm.
And I think that's what she said to me at the end. Just do what you want, and it doesn't matter what I think. Which I think is a very special state of mind to
It
have,
it
especially when
really
she
is.
disagrees. Yeah.
Because let me ask you this: what about your neighbors? I mean,
Yeah.
your immediate community. Did they know what you were doing, and how did they treat you?
It was very difficult, especially for the people I lived with at the time,
Hmm.
because once they enlisted and I refused, we it, we couldn't stay friends, and we didn't,
Wow.
and we just didn't, and it made tensions with family members. It made tensions with high school friends. Yeah, I really did what became very disconnected. But I was very lucky to have a community of activists, and that's why these like refuser groups are so important,
Hmm.
because I made new friends who are aligned with me politically and through action, and we are still friends, and these are the people that are now my housemates
Hmm.
and my like chosen family, and it's very meaningful to have community, exactly because sometimes you need to make choices that make you leave your previous community behind.
Well, it's like you said, you became. One could say you became an outcast.
I became a traitor.
Now, what is the difference? Now, what is a traitor? Tell me that.
I mean, it's something people would call me and would
Mhm.
tell me that I am. And I think in many senses it's like not such a bad description. I mean, because I betrayed the values of my environment, because I thought these values weren't true or just. Um,
So, did you feel that you needed to leave the community in which you grew up when they were calling you a traitor, when you were characterized that way? Did that mean that you needed to leave?
I mean, I didn't. I think it's complicated also because people go through changes, and like
Yeah.
for my parents, it was very clear that they went through a change. Like I think my mother ended up very proud in me and
Mhm.
proud of the person I am, and she, I think when I was in military prison, she really felt the responsibility of being my person on the outside, and not
Mhm.
only like supporting me but also representing me to others. She would have to explain to her friends and her family why I did what I did, and that I think also really shifted her way of thinking, and she's now very supportive of me. So
Mhm.
this stepping out is complicated, and also with some of my high school friends we ended up like re- like staying very very close. And some of them also didn't enlist in the end, and it was for different reasons maybe, but we could remain friends. And some of the people I knew in the youth movement years later would understood or like felt that they were cheated and lied to when they were sent into the military, and we reconnected later, and they told me how angry they were at the system that sent them to these military missions. So these because because I stayed in Jerusalem and I remained as an activist, these connections didn't really break. They just changed in different ways.
When you went to military prison, what was that like?
Um it's a weird space because it's very much a prison. I was in a
Mhm.
cell with 10 other girls, and like we would spend most of our days in the cell. I would also do like prison work. I worked a lot in the kitchen, like washing dishes and things like that. But also, it's a military prison. So so it's like, everyone is your age, like the guards are your age, the high officers are also like around your age, so it's like very weird. And also I think, and it's also very much a mirror of Israeli society, where there is a lot of stratification and racism in general. So, for example, for Ethiopian Jews, they're a small portion of society, but they were like overly represented inside the military prison.
Mhm.
Um,
So you would see the Black Israelis, more of them, like in the United States, which is what we
yes,
see. So how did that make you feel?
it was very. I don't know. I was young and everything was.
Mhm.
I'm still young, but,
Well,
but I
no,
was
but
younger.
because I'm asking you these questions because you're on a journey, and
Yes,
I'm your elder. So I've been, are you 25, 26?
27. Yes.
I've been that a long time ago. And who I was at 16, I was not at 18. I was not at 19, 20, 21, 25. You make a change and you just continue to evolve. You will see yourself turning another corner at 30. And should God continue to give you time, you will continue to evolve. And so it's very interesting to me, and I think for all of us here, to hear how you've been evolving, because you're in your 20s. That is such a dynamic period for young people. Typically, if you're privileged, you're in college. But certainly, no matter what, you are really becoming free. You're leaving your childhood behind and moving into your adulthood. You're beginning to move away from your parents, maybe, or certainly you're grappling with it. And a lot of things that you were taught are being challenged at this point in your life. So that's why it's very interesting to me. I'm asking you all of these probing questions, and maybe you'll walk away from this thinking about something else, because you're at that age, and that's why I ask you. Because peer pressure is very powerful, and I'm wondering, since the guards were in your age group, how did they treat you? And did they understand you?
Yeah. No,
Did
it
they
was.
make you feel unwelcome? Did they make you feel like a traitor? Or did you find any, like Mandela did when he was in prison? His guards developed a grudging respect for him. And then as time went on, they developed a love for him because they appreciated his courage.
Yeah. Wow, that's a very powerful question. Yeah, I think it's interesting because politically everyone was like very much disagreeing with me,
Hmm.
and because yeah, I mean, there's a lot of racism towards Palestinian people, and they were not the people in military prison, so it was just um, a lot of people thought I was crazy, but also I think because of like the honesty of the action of refusal, people were also like, I think, appreciated the just like the honesty and like the sort of going all the way of it. I'm just like, yeah, this is what I believe in. This is what I do. I don't care about the consequences. It's something that I think moved a lot of the people I met, and and I think they experienced me as like very gentle. Like
Hmm.
they would talk to me as if I'm like a very very gentle person, which is something that I've never very much felt about myself. I guess it's just like a very like a sort of different dynamic and environment, and I had yeah, I think my relationships with them sometimes were like very difficult because I remember fighting with them also with the guards mainly. I never fought with my like cellmates,
Sure.
but I would fight with the guards. um
Did you feel safe when you fought with the guards?
I think I'm that type of person, that I always have to speak my mind. But I think it's something that like my cellmates sort of appreciated, that I would be like this person that always has to speak their mind, and yeah. But it's also someone they view as gentle, and my most meaningful relationships were with the people that I was imprisoned with. Um, yeah.
You keep referring to the racism
Yes.
that
It's a
you
very
saw.
racist society.
Yes, please explain.
Um, I think it
And I ask you that, understanding that in the West, it's a the West is very racist,
yes.
and the darker you are, the harder you have it. I
Yes.
mean, and that's the way it is. I'm not saying it's right; it's not. But understanding that, that's why I ask you that in that context, not in a not in a judgmental way, but it's amazing how in life when you start from a place of privilege and then you go into a place when you lose your privilege. It's like Moses. He was born into, under a death warrant. Then he was brought into the house of the king, the favorite son. Excuse me, and then he gave it all up.
Mm.
And so he saw life from a lot of different stations. And it seems that you've seen life from a lot of different stations.
Mm.
And so that's why I ask you, because you keep bringing up the racism. And you said, no, it's a very racist place. And it's not an indictment of Israel as much as it is, but it is an indictment of the West, of Western thinking, right? Because that's the United States and it's my home. Oh, there it is.
Yes.
So help me to understand. Did you interact with any of the Ethiopian prisoners?
Yes.
And what did you learn anything from them?
A lot. I think
Like,
it was also, I think I yeah, I always had sort of good relations, I think, with most of the people, and I learned a lot from like their experience of mistrust in the system, because I mean Israel brought in the Ethiopian people like in invitation. As Jewish people, they were promised that they would get a very warm welcome, but they were not. And they were sort of pushed into poverty, um, and
into subservience, right? Would you say?
yes, and you have, and it didn't only happen with the Ethiopian people, it also happened with the Mizrahi people who came from like
Mhm.
the North African countries,
Mhm.
who you really have these, like now you can find like texts from the 50s and the 60s where teachers in schools really explain how they sort of pushed the Mizrahi children into different roles in society, and how the education system was built in such a way that they would be pushed to like blue collar jobs, and not have, and like their teachers like didn't think that they could be, university students, or things like that. um and it also like comes through in policing, and the way that police violence is being uh, inflicted on them. So what I learned from them was like the power of that mistrust in the system, and that is something that we connected around also, because they didn't agree with my actions, because the dehumanization of Palestinians is so harsh, and many times in systems of oppression, then sort of the person below you in the system is someone that you might also push down on.
Mhm.
So they would also, dehumanize our people and say like, oh, if I could push a button and kill all of them, I would. And people said those types of things to me. And but even though that was what they were thinking, and we had a lot of conversations about that, they always told me like, yeah, like you go for like fighting the system and for like going against the system and for like showing them that you won't surrender. So it was interesting
Mm.
and empowering also, and it but complicated.
Well, did the lessons that you learned from the Ethiopians, did that help shape your views of Palestinians or the understanding of the Palestinian condition?
um, I think it's a very different condition, because for the Palestinians, especially those who don't have an Israeli citizenship, for the Palestinians like in the West Bank, their lives are so difficult, and the poverty they are pushed into is very deep, and the level of they are so vulnerable to like the violence of settlers and the military and the police, and so it's way deeper, like the lack of freedom of movement, of like connection to water, to food, to shelter. It's like really like the most exposed and like sort of lawless sort of area, and it's very different. And I think that is why also, because it's so different, there isn't much solidarity between like the Ethiopian Jewish people and the Palestinian, because it's very like disconnected, because
Mm-hmm.
there is like a culture of fear and a culture of military and a culture of separation, like great separation between people.
Where does the culture of fear come from? Where you
It's
whatever?
very intentional, it comes from the news and from the media and from the education system. And like as a child in Israel, you learn a lot about the Holocaust and how we have to have a country and a military to defend ourselves, and that is how they justify war crimes. Um, like as a kid, you read like kid stories about the Holocaust.
Mhm.
It yeah, and everything that happens is being amplified into this narrative of fear, and not into a narrative of like political change,
Mhm.
justice, how that creates security and safety and peace. It's all about how we have to use force.
And so, do you see the tie between fear and the militarization of a society? Excuse me, because as you know, you visited my brother on Capitol Hill, Congressman Jackson, and
Yes.
I'm sure you know something about our family. My parents worked for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, who talked about the strength. He wrote a book, The Strength to Love. Where do we go from here, chaos or community? And their philosophy and nonviolent resistance, it all came from, I guess, releasing the fear so that you could love, actually. Because love and fear can't coexist.
Mm.
It just, you can't do that. And so my question for you is, as how long were you in prison?
4 months.
So when you came out of prison as a conscientious objector, were you able to go to school, get a job? Was your life, um, were you prevented from entering into Israeli society fully?
um in some ways I was, but it was also, I think, a choice I made before I refused, because I knew that doors are going to be closed for me.
Mm.
I made the choice before I refused that I am going to be a political activist, an anti-occupation activist, an anti-apartheid activist. Like that was a part of my choice, was to enter that path. Um, and I did a lot of educational work after I refused. And I started engaging in activism and protective presence in the West Bank, which is maybe I need to explain more what it means. It's the practice of sort of using our privilege as Jewish Israelis to try to mitigate and maybe like change the violence that Palestinians experience from the settlers and from the military. It's sort of and it used to be effective. Like it used to be that like if we accompany Palestinian shepherds, then they won't be attacked because there are Jewish people with them. Or that the military acts differently. We are allowed to film and document if something does happen. And it can still be useful, but for the past 2 years, there has been such a great and violent increase of the settler attacks that it's no longer as effective. Like the destruction of like Palestinian homes and property and agriculture and lives is immense, and the settlers no longer stop when, or like they don't mind also like beating us to a pulp and burning our cars and destroying what we bring. So what we do now is more like solidarity activism, because it hasn't been able to be protective anymore because the impunity in which they act is now too great.
Do you see, is there a way out of this? I mean, because it seems like the fear is so overwhelming. And it seems as the Palestinians continue to resist, and as the world really begins to, world sympathy has really shifted toward the Palestinians. Has that made, how has that impacted Israel, or most Israelis that you know?
I think it hasn't impacted them enough, and I think it needs to impact them more. And I think because Israeli society is a part of the problem, it's not only the government; it is the people serving in the military. It is
Explain that. What do you mean by that?
I mean, I work for an organization called Refuser Solidarity Movement, and what we do is we support refusal and refuser organization and resistance groups, and we try to amplify the voices of resistance through our social media pages under the name Resistance Solidarity Network. And we have an analysis of power that is sort of built on the idea that there are these structure of powers, but they, in order to have power, they sort of rely on these pillars of support. And these pillars are money and like public legitimacy and all sorts of things. And there are also the military. So we really believe in sort of destabilizing the military in order to destabilize the whole system and sort of force it to stop doing what it's doing. And through sort of supporting refusal and encouraging refusal, we are both able to destabilize the power of the system and also able to sort of make it so people who are committing these war crimes won't commit them or won't be compliant in committing them, even if they don't think they are. And we have been, I think, currently in this specific moment, refusal is entering the mainstream in Israel.
Really?
You can hear, yes. Even these like big demonstrations that it seems that are only for the hostages are now supporting refusal. And because we're in such a distressed moment that this like language that we've been encouraging is managing to enter the mainstream. And so there are groups that are talking, I think, in a language that for me would be, I won't be able to use that language because for me, I'm moved by like solidarity with Palestinians and recognition of the Nakba. But I am working together with people who are able to speak into the mainstream and call on the public to refuse. And people who served in Gaza are saying, I won't occupy Gaza. I didn't enlist in order to occupy Gaza. So this is an important movement in sort of trying to change. And even though it's not perfect politically, it could be very effective in stopping what is happening right now.
How do you think it can be effective? How?
In the sense that without soldiers, these things can't happen. Like an occupation of Gaza cannot happen without soldiers. So we need to get people to not serve.
As people come back from service, how are people, oh no, that's quite all right. How are people impacted? You know, there's something called moral injury. Don't worry about it, ATALYA. Do you begin to do people feel morally injured?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. I feel like I think one of the things that refusing gave me is that I never had to face that. I could be very, very morally honest with myself and with my action. But I think people who didn't make that choice do feel that way. Because it sort of injures your whole system of belief. And what I see everywhere is a cognitive dissonance. It's like something in your brain has to sort of, you start to have like a thought process and you have to stop it and like jump above certain ideas, because there are things that a person just cannot justify. And so there is a cognitive dissonance with a lot of people.
Has that cognitive dissonance, is that now just part of the Israeli society, do you think?
Yes, I do. I do. Because, I mean, how can you justify war crimes? You have to willfully be ignorant.
Do they think that they're war crimes?
I think some people do. I think some people you would consider like Zionists still can recognize that war crimes are happening. Like I think for me, becoming an anti-Zionist was a lot because I didn't want to have any sort of cognitive dissonance, and I wanted to just be able to reject things and like see an existence beyond them and see other visions of what our future can look like and what solutions are possible. But I see people who recognize that Israel is committing war crimes and are sort of trying to make things make sense and like sort of re-explain and redefine things that they thought to be true, and it doesn't work.
As you continue, I mean, as you closed out your time in prison and as you began to build your life away with, I guess, as you said, with this new family that you had to form, and that's not very unusual, ATALYA, because I think that when you undergo these life-changing experiences, and particularly as outliers, because in Dr. King's moment, he was quite in the minority. Throughout my father's life, he's been quite in the minority. So you end up with your supporters, and particularly those who are close in, they become your family. While you're outliers, so you don't feel so alone, and it really is okay. But my question is for you at your age, though. Then they were your age. Where do you go from here? Do you stay in Israel? Do you want to stay there? Do you want to live in other places? What? Do you want to stay there? Do you want to move?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And it's a question that my community is struggling with a lot. I think for me, it comes to, am I useful where I am? Like, as because we do feel like there is meaning in sort of doing solidarity activism and standing together in solidarity with Palestinians and being there in these spaces to, even if it's just to experience the violence together, because it still does some help. And it allows the practice of sumud, which is very, very central to the Palestinian struggle, the practice of steadfastness. And it sort of, it supports that in many ways. And also we engage in a lot of like resistance that isn't that. I mean, we do direct actions and we do demonstrations and we speak out in public and we are able to change some minds and affect some people. So it feels that as long as there's something that we're able to do that might make things better, I feel a responsibility. And also I feel a lot of shame in the things happening in my name. And I feel a lot of shame in not doing enough and knowing that I can do more and be in more places doing more things. And but also life is very, very hard and dangerous. And we lost friends and comrades and it's very precarious, and you can't really plan more than 3 months ahead because you don't know what will happen to people who are close to you and important to you. So
how do you feel in the world? Because this, as you go through this range of emotions, my question is, how do you travel in the world with an Israeli passport? Are you encountering hostilities?
Not really, because I think I'm never sort of out of constant context, I guess. Like when I'm here as an activist
Okay.
that supports Palestinians. So I think I'm having interesting conversations. And also I think I'm trying to act in humility. So I haven't experienced anything that I would say. But also I'm not, my life is very much like around this topic and around this. So it's not like I don't go and party and then like it's not so much part of my life.
Well, do you see yourself moving into a space where you can let your guard down at least a little and enjoy, have some joy, do something? No one's saying that you need to go burn the discotheque down. I'm not advocating that. But do you have any hobbies? Is there
Yes. I like to read a lot, and I'm doing I'm also, I sort of didn't mention it, but I'm doing an MA. I'm a university student, and I was a university student, and it's also it's a part of my like political theory or like environment. It also around the university, and I like to like to do that.
Okay, so you're a creative. Well,
Yeah,
yes, you are absolutely.
yeah.
Well, now tell us about this documentary,
Yes.
Objector,
Yeah.
which I encourage everyone to watch. Really, because go on Amazon Prime. I'm a member, so when I found it, and it's profoundly moving. Can you tell us what it's about and tell people why you think that they should see it?
So Objector was, I think, very much a project of creating together. It's a movie that we made with my brother's partner at the time, and my brother and me. And Molly Stewart, who was the director of the film, and she's brilliant. She's amazing. And she and my brother were in a relationship, and she was a film student, and she heard that I'm thinking about refusing, and she thought it would be like a great documentary project for her school. So she did a 15-minute short film about that. And she, of course, filmed a lot of footage that she couldn't use because it's for school. It has to be 15 minutes. And she got a really, really good reception, and was able to get a grant in order to make it into a full feature film. And she came back, and we filmed more, and it sort of happened in this, like, no budgets, just us doing this, or like the budget that she did get went into like having another person who will film, another person that will work on the sound, another person who's an activist also, who will make music. So it was very collaborative, and for me, it happened in a very different period of my life. I think sometimes I hear things that I said in interviews there, and it's hard for me to hear them, and I disagree with myself. But also, I think that something that Molly managed to do is sort of tell a very emotional story about family, and I think something that people tell me after they see it is especially about my mother, that like seeing her process was very, very moving, because you get to see her move from being like unsupportive and like thinking that this is the wrong decision, into being supportive and joining us. And she even came to a demonstration with us, and she still comes to demonstrations with me. And I think seeing her go through that is very moving. And it's I think it's
Was your mother frightened for you?
I think she was, yes.
Because daughters and fathers, and mothers and daughters have different relationships. And I don't need to tell you that, but mothers, I think, because they've had to navigate the world as women,
Yes,
are more fearful for their daughters. And so, but you've got to be tremendously proud of you now, and maybe you've helped to encourage her in many, many ways. Do you plan to write a book about this?
me.
Yes, you. Yes.
I don't know. I guess we'll need to see what will happen. I still don't know how it will end.
No one said it had to end. You keep going. Because I mean, the journey that you've been on in and of itself is so fascinating.
Thank you.
And the name of the documentary is, Bernadette wants to know because she wants to tell people about it, Objector, right? And so, and the thing is, people want to encourage you because what you're doing is encouraging people. There is no monolithic group on earth. And we all approach life, ATALYA, from what we've seen, and so now I hope that you will be encouraged.
Thank you.
And know that there's a lot of love for you in this world. There is. There's a lot of pain that for all of us as we watch what's happening to Palestine, as we watch what's happening in Israel, but we know that there are a lot of possibilities. And as a Christian, I can tell you that God can do anything but fail. Anything. God can do many things. Fail, God cannot do. And God is a healer. And we pray that you will be healed, because if we can work this out in Israel, I think we can work out anything in the world. Is there anything you'd like to say before we go?
First of all, thank you so much for your words and for having me here. I think, to me, this is about responsibility a lot. And I do see the people of Israel as responsible, not the government. And I think it's this responsibility that needs to move us to create something different. And I think while we sort of accept it on ourselves, then we're able to recognize. And I think a future for us really lies in recognition, in recognizing the Nakba, in recognizing the harm done and the pain, and then on thinking about reparations and sort of how can we fix this, and how can we create a future with equal rights for all and justice. And I also believe that, you know, systems that are unjust are sort of bound to fail. And we see it with the environment. I mean, like we can't have like an economic system that is so unjust, because the planet will burn, because our environment is something real that we have to love and to treat with love and with respect, and otherwise we can go on. And so I hope that colonialism is the same, and that this system will fail, and that we will be able to sort of have life and beyond it with justice and equality.
Well, you know, I tell you what, when I see you, I have a lot of hope for the world, because I see a change. And anything you want, it has to start with you. And I thank you for your courage. And I pray that God will continue to keep you lifted up, and know that you have some people who love you and who care for you and who are praying for you without ceasing. And I'm among them.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Oh, just take that into your heart and hold on to it, my sweet. ATALYA ben ABBA, a portrait and courage, if you will. You should see the documentary Objector. And Bernadette said, may the Holy Spirit strengthen and protect you. And I told you, God can do anything but fail. Anything. Anything but that. So you continue to pray. You continue to pray. And you hold on to your faith. Hold on to your faith. And in the end, my father always says that faith will never disappoint. Faith will never disappoint. It will always see you through. And as he says, you keep hope alive. So you do that. I can't wait for him to meet you before the week is out.
Yes.
May God continue to bless you. ATALYA ben ABBA, everybody. Go see the documentary. You can go on Amazon. And I hope you will watch it. And please continue to pray for this young woman and keep her lifted up. There is a way out of this. There's a way out of all of this pain. And we are going to move. If we stay with God, we can work it out. I told you, God can do anything but fail. So let us do our part. I'm sending you so much love. The Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.